Growing up in Oklahoma, one of the scariest things about being an Okie is you have tornadoes out there. So here we might have fires, or you might have an earthquake or something like that. These are not things that really concern people in the Midwest down to the South. It's very humid there. It rains all the time. But you get the cold wind mixing with the warm wind from the south. They mix together. And then I lived in the heart of Tornado Alley, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma, you would find yourself at different times having to go into like a closet. You'd put a mattress on top of you in order to kind of do like your storm drill. Now, most homes now, you would build like a storm bunker where you would go under, and you don't really have to concern yourself with getting hurt if you're in a storm bunker because you're basically underground. But I remember there'd be moments where my whole family would be in there, but sometimes my dad loved to go watch the tornadoes, which is super weird now in retrospect. But at the time, it was the scariest thing to me. I was like, my dad's going to get taken away. I had seen the movie Twister, right? And my dad's going to get swept up and he's going to get thrown away. And we had lost a lot of stuff at our house from tornadoes and or our neighbors' pets and stuff. Like, it was crazy. And I just remember the sense of calm that took place whenever my dad would finally come into the closet and into like our kind of makeshift storm shelter, where it's like he had this kind of calm, cool, and collected attitude towards it. Even though I know now, being a dad myself, there's probably a little bit of a freak out in his bones, but externally he was very calm. There's powerful characteristic, I think, for some of us who are in the middle of maybe some type of spiritual warfare, or we feel like the enemy is getting the better of us, or maybe we just keep getting dragged along to the same temptation over and over again. We keep giving into the flesh, or we've experienced some kind of palpable version of spiritual warfare. Let me direct you to Mark chapter 3 today. Mark chapter 3, Jesus is talking to a group of Pharisees and religious leaders who are kind of freaked out about the powerful things that Jesus is doing. And it says this, verse 22 of chapter 3 of Mark. The teachers of the law came to Jerusalem and said, "This man is possessed by Beelzebub. By the prince of demons, he is driving out demons." Which, it's a weird accusation, right? So Jesus called them over to him and began to speak to them in parables. "How can Satan drive out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand," which is exactly what Abraham Lincoln said. "And if Satan opposes himself and is divided, he cannot stand. His end has come. In fact, no one can enter a strong man's house without first tying him up. Then he can plunder the strong man's house. Truly, I tell you, people can be forgiven all their sins and every slander they utter. But whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will never be forgiven. They are guilty of an eternal sin." Here's the power right here. What Jesus is saying is, first of all, the accusation is crazy. It would be like if I accused someone, let's say I was playing for the Indianapolis Colts. They're my favorite football team. And let's say this last week they played the Vikings. It didn't go very well for the Vikings, but that's neither here nor there. But let's say I was a secret spy and I was a Colts player, but I was playing for the Vikings trying to help the Colts win. Well, that would make a lot of sense if I was dropping the ball and I was fumbling it and I was kicking it out of bounds intentionally and I was holding on every play and I was getting all these personal fouls. It would not make a lot of sense if you were like, "I think this guy's a spy," or I think he's a saboteur for the Colts, but then I was scoring touchdowns for the Vikings and I was helping the Vikings and I was assisting the Vikings, which they needed a lot of help. But that wouldn't make any sense. You would then go, at some point you'd have to go, "I think he actually just plays for the Vikings. I don't think he's actually for us." And that's what the accusation. He's for Satan. And Jesus goes, "So I'm casting out Satan. At what point am I going against Satan if I am actually Satan?" And he uses this phrase. He says, if you want to go plunder a strong man's house, you must first tie up that strong man. How do you do so? You need a stronger man to do so. It's like hanging out with my kids and this idea of meekness, where my daughter was holding my hand the other morning in bed and she kept squeezing it. Then she would do like the two-hand grip, like squeeze as tight as she could. It doesn't hurt. And then after a few seconds, I just, at about 30% strength, squeezed her hand back. And she goes, "Oh, Dad, ouch." I'm not trying to hurt her or anything, but in some cases, I just want her to understand the power that her dad has. Not for the sake simply of having her know how powerful her dad is, but because Harper's going to come up against a lot of stuff in her life. And I want her to know that when I say that Dad has your back, that means something. that I'm not impotent, I'm not weak, that I've got these different powers and abilities. And how much more infinitely true is that when God says, I've got your back, even in matters of spiritual warfare. He's got us. We'll see you guys tomorrow.